out there. This is Sam Kilmer, Managing Director of Cornerstone Advisors, coming to you with a new episode of Fintech Hustle. We are live. Well, not actually live. We're recording this, but we're in the hall. Well, not really in the hall. We're on a balcony. We are in Sandy. We're up. Yeah. It's none of it's all a fraud. It's all AI. I like that. We are at Finovate, outside, quite considerably outside of Finovate, not breaking any ground rules of the organization. We're in a private area outside of the Finovate Spring 25 conference. And I'm very fortunate to have three rock stars from the influential halls of fintech who've joined us to tell us a little bit about some of their perspectives on the industry. And so let me introduce our guests. Over here we have Andy Ivankovich, who's the relatively new CEO of Baker Hill. And we have Maya. Help me with your last name, Maya. Mikhailov. Thank you. I know. So Ivankovich, Mikhailov, and yeah, it's funny. Jason can attest that I actually asked earlier, and I practiced it, and then of course then I forgot. So that's pretty much the story of my life. And then Jason Henrichs, not Jimi Hendrix, but Jason Henrichs, CEO of Alloy Labs, CEO of SAVVI AI, CEO of Baker Hill. So I've got three CEOs. We're rocking the free world here on a balcony in San Diego. And let me just kind of kick off by asking you guys to tell me a little bit about the day in the life of, what you do in fintech. Jason, you want to start off? Tell me about a day in the life of Jason, not Jimi Hendrix.
Chaos, mad chaos. It starts somewhere around 5:30 with a child. Not the day in the life of the chaos. The day in the life of fintech, not the children crawling in bed. Really wear two hats. They're pretty boring. CEO of Alloy Labs. We're a consortium of 94 community banks that work together to drive innovation. My job is probably chief chaos maker is what the team would say. I don't quell the chaos. But I spend my day talking to banks, bankers, CEOs, fintech partners, et cetera. And then co-host Breaking Banks, which is the largest fintech podcast in the world. And then I get to talk to really interesting people. And this has been a bucket list item for me to be on the Fintech Hustle. I didn't pack my hat because Sam said no hats allowed. He's the only one who's allowed to wear a hat. So there you go.
You got me on multiple fronts there. We'll come back to that. That's good stuff. And Maya, how about a day in the life of Maya?
I was going to say, it also starts with morning chaos, child-based morning chaos. But my day starts pretty early as well. My team is based out of Chicago, so we normally have a stand-up somewhere around 7 a.m. My time, I'm based out in the Bay Area. I spend my day acting partially as a data and AI psychologist to banks, helping them emotionally get comfortable with the fact that yes, they will need data. And yes, AI is a real thing. It's not just a fantasy world of agents running around doing banking functions, but it's something that they can do today. So a lot of that is emotional support. It's also some data support as well and use case discovery. And I spend a lot of time with my team figuring out what we can do to better assist our clients in fintech and in banking to help develop solutions that are as practical and reasonable as they are effective.
Well, my day gets started early as well. But I'm with, obviously Baker Hill, which is a 40-year startup is what we like to call it, and based in Carmel, Indiana. But I travel around a lot as well. So visiting our clients throughout the country and then getting back with our teams. In many cases, we kind of call it herding cats, but it's coaching a team. And so we do a lot of things around commercial lending and small business lending. And there's a lot of change and momentum that's happening in the software space. And so it's a long day most days.
Good stuff. I don't know if you're picking up back here, but Maverick and Goose are taking off from Miramar over here. It's so cue to our production team to dial up Danger Zone. I think you had a special request too.
I really wanted Playing with the Boys.
Playing with the Boys. Okay. Okay. Right. It is. That's a good point. That's a good point. So that'll be one of the takeaways from we need to work on that as an industry, don't we? So, but well, I'm just wondering. I know Andy, you guys have been having a conference across town here in San Diego, which was convenient for me. You happen to be in town, and I was like, hey, why don't you come on over here? Let's have a chat. And then you guys have been at Finovate for all of, I don't know, probably a couple hours for all I know. But I'm curious for what limited time you've been at Finovate, and Andy this week here at at your own conference. I mean, what are you, any big topics that are popping out in the hallway? I mean, other than the psychology of AI that you're kind of AI whisperer or whatever, any other topics or kind of obsessions that you're hearing people randy about in the hallway?
Well, one of the things I have to give props to Maya for, and disclosure, we're investors in SAVVI. But speaking at our annual member meeting last week, she didn't bring AI up at all. And this is the thing that, I'm a few hours in, but already annoyed by, is do not give me we are AI for X. You're not AI for anything. If AI is part of your solution, quit talking about it. Talk about actually how you solve a problem. And I mean, I've seen 9 demos at this point. I would guess 7 of 9 talked about AI for X, Y, or Z. Quit it already. Just stop.
I feel the need to constantly apologize when I even say my company name out loud anymore. It used to be called machine learning. It used to be really boring. It used to be the mom jeans of data. And now here we are. And I have to say, before you roll your eyes, let me finish. A lot of what I feel like with regards to AI and banking, I feel like banks love being sold AI. They love these eager founders such as myself coming up to them saying, we are the AI for X. I don't think a lot of them are ready to buy AI because it's more than just, I need to impress my board. It's a commitment to data. It's a commitment to not being a vibes bank, but being a data bank. And it's a commitment to a transfer, not just of process, but of mindset shift. And so I spend quite a lot of my day saying, okay, are we ready for this? Is this something that you're really ready to buy? Are you ready to transform into a data bank?
Can I build on that a second? I mean, this came up last week when we were talking about vibes-based banking. That commitment is that AI is the sexy frosting on top, but you got to build a foundation of data and data access. Let's face it, our cores don't make it easy. They don't make it cheap to get access to data. And if you're not committed to doing that, well, one, you're screwed. Like if you're not committed to data and data access, just fold up, go home with the AI startups. But the other piece, when you asked last week, if you don't have access to the data, how are you making decisions? If you're doing it based on vibes, which was the joke that came out of it, was that doesn't work in a rapidly changing world, right? Like you need access to the data, and the beauty of AI machine learning, it picks trends up faster than the human-based heuristics.
Well, we spent a lot of time talking at our conference about this. And so I had a couple of these conversations going, and it's kind of neat because the NVIDIA CEO, Jensen, was fond of saying things like AI is not going to take your job, but it's the person using AI that's going to take your job. And so part of the conversations we've been looking at inside of banking is more that we're enabling bankers. And if they're using AI tool sets to help them, then we're on the right path. It's not about a slick engine, especially for us. It's all about lending for us. And in some cases that there's companies out there that would say, oh, we can create a decision-based loan within seconds. We're like, well, we can do that too. We've done that. But yet, how is it going to be adopted? Because a banker does have to have that relationship with the client to walk them through with products and services. And that's the value that our banks provide. And so this idea about AI, nonstop, it's there. But we also think it's going to be, like you guys said, part of the business going forward for lending. It's going to be almost like what we saw at .com, right? .com came out 99, and really everybody started embracing the first web experiences. And we're seeing that now, especially in this learning stage.
Yeah. When you say, Andy, that when .com came out, that's such an apt analogy. It was a bit of a mindset shift because before it was, you have to go into my branch, you have to talk to a person. Right. And some bankers couldn't imagine a world where you'd rather bloop, bloop, bloop on your phone or on your computer and not have that relationship. Yep. And so it was almost a mindset shift that was harder than writing some code and making a website.
Yeah.
So,
exactly it.
And I was working in strategy consulting during the first, .com. And I think of everyone's strategy. There's a real good analogy that you started here, Andy. And I'm going to start stealing that. I'll give you credit. Don't worry. Give you credit. But I think about even like Walmart, right? Walmart started Walmart.com as a separate business, as if like they gave away all the value they had, which is, hey, we also happen to have a lot of brick and mortar, and there's value in doing both of these and merging them And sure, we kept the name, but we gave up every other synergy we had, like the relationship, the ability to go in and say, try it on, right? Be able to return it, things like that. And it's ironic then that Amazon buys Whole Foods to go from pure.com to actually have brick and mortar and how they merge it.
That's interesting. I think I thought it was interesting that we jumped right into talking about data. And are you serious about getting your data put together, whether it's from core or anything else? And I did, Andy, one thing that I remembered that you were talking about earlier this week that kind of had my attention. You were talking about the idea of a data pond. I was like, okay, I've been hearing about data lakes. I've been hearing about data warehouses. So then you start down this path of data pond, and I'm like, I wanted to learn a little bit more about that. So I kind of dug into it a little bit, but I don't, you want to take a second and maybe kind of give your take on that?
I think if anything, right, that you guys just brought it up just now, in order to do good AI in the future or be ready and prepared for it, we really are at this generation level concept of getting your data right and ready. And so data pond for us is a play off of the old data lake structures, right? But for us, it's this idea, as soon as I know an individual or an entity, I'm going to pull every data resource that I have, either from my core, or I'm going to go externally to things like Secretary of State calls for articles of incorporation. And I can mine that information. And then also, as we get better, we talked about machine learning within lending. It's been there for at least the last, that's right. And so part of this is getting our data corrected and stabilized. And there is a better architecture. I kind of always think about that our LOSs, our cores are all built on 50-year-old technology, right? The read-write databases, and you put a slick UI on top of it, and you're saying that you're innovative when really it's lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I was going to say, Andy, you bring up a great concept, which is that I think there is this prerequisite paralysis that's happening, though, in data with banking, where they think they need a lake, but actually they think they need an ocean, when really sometimes a pond will do. A pond is better than what you have right now, which is vibes. A pond is a place to start. Yes. And then you can build on the learnings. And I think that sometimes what we're seeing is they get into this mentality of we have to do a 2-year data architecture project just to use our data. And again, it goes back to the question, then what are you doing now?
Yeah.
Like, let's start smaller. Let's start practical, small learning baby steps. And I think that's just the way to go.
Any reactions to that, Jason?
Well, I mean, I think anytime you're looking at doing something innovative and new, it comes down to scope. And as banks, we like to treat everything as a core conversion, which is let's plan this puppy out for 36 months with a waterfall down to, plus or minus 4 days, what's going to be happening. And I think one of the key things, what AI changes even more than machine learning, is you don't need structured databases in the same way that you used to. And that opens up a whole new world of possibility that, to Maya's point, you can start small and do small things and do them well and learn and expand. But you need access. You need a pool, a lake, a pond. You pick it, right? Like, you don't need to build the ocean to start. Pick a piece, get access to it. You don't have to worry about structure in architecture in the same way that you used to get something useful out of it.
Interesting. So since I'm a consultant, I'll go negative. So here we go. I'm just curious. I'll allow you all to go negative. And that is, what's something, other than, what is it? Vibification. That'll be the Shevlin hashtag, but Ryan Shevlin, but you call it vibes banking or vibe banking. Other than that, what's something that you all see going on in the business right now that you think is either broken, screaming for an entrepreneur to fix it? Just, something that you wish was better or that could be fixed out there. Anybody want to take a stab at that? Anybody have something that you think that's broken that could use a fix?
More often than not, where we're finding the problem isn't the technology, it's the people and processes on the other side. And we spent a lot of time talking about this last week in Nashville, but we hear it again and again. I think this is something the entrepreneurs that are going to win will appreciate. It isn't about their technology and their application. It's figuring out, how do we actually help the organizational adapt and rewrite some of the people and processes associated with it? Because that's where the challenge is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I've been in the AI game since 2014, and I can tell you sometimes you just need a radio button. You don't need AI. You just need to examine your process and think to yourself, is it really automation that I'm looking for right now? Or is it one less step? And why are we doing this step? And why is the data over there instead of over here?
Well, that's interesting. Anything else on that, Andy?
I actually was going to take a non-technology spin on it, right? Because you said about the business and what we're looking at. And today, the Fed's basically decided no rate cut, which, if we did, we know there's so much of this pent-up demand for lending would breeze through our banks. And so we've been praying for that change, right? And there's a lot of, and so I don't know, we talk about, we don't want to get political. Is it broken in the process? But I just wish for lower rates right now.
I'm going to take the counter argument that in the banks that I'm talking to, the problem isn't the interest rate. That may help, but it is the economic uncertainty. They've tightened the credit box so much. You can loosen the interest rate. They're still worried. I'm hearing from banks that it's 19 of our top 20 CRE deals are stalled because these big commercial buyers are like, not right now. Now does not seem the time, right? We're seeing it on the small business front, where one of our banks was telling me the story of a woman who owns a set of boutiques. Guess what? She just placed her orders for Christmas. A lot of cash went out the door, except all of her inventory is in a port that she can't afford to pay the tariff on to get the inventory. And the bank doesn't know, do I give her a loan? Because is she going to be able to sell at the price she has to raise it to cover the increased costs? And so they're like, they're stuck. And sure, you lower the interest rate. They're like, we're just not sure if that's a good loan. They're faced with uncertainty.
But it's because there's uncertainty that you need to arm your team with better tools.
Yes.
Like in times of uncertainty, we've often gone back to spreadsheets. We've often gone back to our decision trees and our processes on lending and that are codified in some sort of big document that no one's ever reading. And it's this time that you have to ask yourself, look, I have a team that wants to help. I have an organization that wants to keep up, but am I giving them the tools to keep up? And I will say this also. I think one of the biggest problems in banking is some bankers, not all, some bankers hope that they can retire before all of this hits them.
Indeed.
Like they're looking at the tsunami of technology coming at them and of change, but really people change too. And they're saying, gosh, I hope this is going to be someone else's problem and I can just kind of coast by. When you then add uncertainty to the scenario, the time for coasting by is actually past. And yeah. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Tom Cruise has Mission Impossible coming out, and it's all about AI and entity about coming to kill us and take us out. So that's always kind of good things in the conversation.
On another note, I know I didn't build it because nobody's knocked on my door and asked me if I was Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
So I know I am not responsible for what happens next.
Well, Maya, to your point, on the digital transformation front, when that was a 5 to 7 year from now problem, we saw a lot of, very senior, let's call it old white men wearing khaki pants that like to golf. Oh, no, they're not khaki. Yeah.
Moderate. Is goal.
As JP would say, they follow the 363 rule of lending. Do you know what that is? You take deposits in at 3, you lend at 6, you hit the golf course by 3. Exactly. So 5 years on digital transformation with the current uncertainty and AI and the speed with which it's being adopted. Guess what? You didn't retire soon enough. It's now your problem.
It's your problem. It is. And you have a team. And what's really amazing, though, in so many banks that I talk to, you go kind of one level deeper in the bank and they have a really enthusiastic team, a team that's looking at their future with the bank and saying, I want to use these tools. I'm using them at home. I'm using them with my family and my kids to plan things. I'm using them every single day. I want to bring this knowledge and information. So I will say that you have eager folks that want this change. And now it's a question of how are they going to do it and everyone getting comfortable with the change happening.
Mm. Okay, so we went negative. That was fun. Of course. Please do.
So on a positive note, not to throw all of the banks under, under the boat, or I was going to say under the golf cart. A year ago at our member meeting, there was a lot of talk about AI and what ifs. I don't know if you felt this change too. This time, even the CEOs of, smaller banks or even the big banks that are more conservative, they weren't talking about what ifs. They were talking about the things they are actively doing. Some are in baby steps. Some are in full-fledged, like, here's how we're embracing it, organizational wide, but it's happening. And so if you're not one of those.
No, I was floored when there was a banker in Nashville and she has a sub 10 billion AUM bank And the thing she was talking about is they found hundreds of these tiny little use cases that were helping their team. And she's not doing this with an army of individuals. They just said, what are the problems we want to tackle? How do we tackle them? Sometimes AI, sometimes spreadsheets, sometimes better process, but just like tackling problems. And that's the way to approach this.
Yeah. We saw, we did a couple of polling, and we found about 40% of the banks that attended our conference. It's very interesting. They're using Copilot because that's an easy check the box, start to engage with a lot of their folks in an enterprise wide way. I think it's like $30 or $40 a month for employees. And so we're seeing them kind of get those use cases out there. But even CFOs using it to create spreadsheets, right? And then getting more common with the ideas of how they're going to go next. And then as they hear vendors coming to them, at least they're a little bit more on the cuffs of learning. So
anything else you guys see going on in the business right now that really has you jazzed or positive? Like I went negative, things that are broken. What do you think is, not the word to be fixed, but what gives you a lot of optimism right now? Anybody? I don't want to take a shot at that. Are we all just like pessimistic out here in the sunshine?
The people I meet give me optimism. Like the people I'm meeting at these banks every single day, their desire to improve, their desire to help service their customers better, their desire to keep up with the fintechs and sometimes partner with them. Like that's what's giving me a ton of optimism is their desire to implement these changes and their desire to move from just strictly being a Vibe bank to being a Vibe plus data bank.
Yeah, I was just saying that we see it in a space for LOSs. This is a good time that a lot of banks are taking a step back and trying to get much more efficient, learn how to lend better, lend faster. And so now there's a ton of evaluation criteria. You're probably seeing RFPs coming into the consulting firm as well. So we do see momentum, at least people buying and wanting to upgrade or switch out to LOSs right now.
Seeing a bifurcation in the banks and credit unions that for some, the uncertainty has actually been the motivation they needed, where they're like, the house is on fire, the boat's on fire, we got to start moving and doing it. And that's great, right? Because in an upmarket, it's easy to be, I don't want to say lazy, but to ride the wave, right? The wave, like the rising tide is lifting all boats. Now they're realizing the tide's coming out. If I'm not going to be stranded, torturing this analogy, right? They need to do something different. Now, unfortunately, the flip side of that is there are a number of banks that are taking the tried and true, I'm just going to try and wait it out. I don't think waiting it out is going to work. So we're probably going to see not only that it's too late if you're going to wait out digital transformation, it's probably too late if you think you're going to wait this out and just sell the bank at some point. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? We need a little Darwinian, the best will survive and thrive and the others need to be culled.
Yeah, and given the work that you're doing with all the venture work, and investor work there, I think one of the things that I've seen that's left me pretty positive, especially I think since last year, because last year seemed like a pretty down year in terms of new fintech investments or investors going into the space, and two things that I see a lot more interest out there in investing in the space, and also probably. Let's say maybe 5 years ago, I probably had a little bit of a narrative or a stereotype around, private equity firms and, what their impact. But actually, I've seen, several players in the market. Baker Hill would be one of them. Abrigo would be one of them. I mean, there's been private equity behind Meridian Link. And what I find interesting about some of that work is, not only because I see some of this in Rise and some of our diligence work, but what I love about it is, historically, I tended to think of that money as going into, I mean, not extract rent, but to extract value. Now I'm seeing way more money going in, and full disclosure, we're private equity backed too at Cornerstone Advisors. I just mean much more growth oriented, like orientation, like, no, we're going to invest in you so you can build new product, go get new clients, as opposed to, hey, can we basically juice this thing and raise prices and get some short-term, squeeze out of it. To me, that's pretty, I think that's pretty positive that there's money coming from lots of different places, and that the expectations aren't just, quick wins, but maybe longer term. How do we help people? Stuff that takes risk and time to marinate. That makes me feel pretty good. But thanks for sharing those perspectives, guys. As my wife's uncle has been known to say a lot. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I leave? So let me ask you what my wife's uncle would ask. Is there anything else you think we should be talking about on Fintech Hustle that we haven't talked about yet? To get out here on this beautiful balcony in the sunshine. Anything else going on in your lives?
Yeah, well, we're out here in San Diego. And so my wife and I, we took a little break to go to the San Diego Zoo. So I did bring up hats, right? I know that you kind of talked about that.
Jason,
yeah. Yeah. But it's the chubby unicorns, right? Need to be saved as well, which are the rhinoceroses at San Diego Zoo. So it's a lot of fun to just kind of take a step back. And even though in our tech world day to day, it's nice to kind of hang out in San Diego on this beautiful day.
How about you guys? Anything else come to mind before we wrap it up?
Well, as long as we're talking the personal in San Diego, it's going to be too late by the time they see this, but the next conference in San Diego, my favorite run in the world is Torrey Pines. And I will be taking an Uber at dawn to go run at Torrey Pines. Maya, you up for that?
How about I chase you with a golf cart so you have a reason to be running? I've been to Torrey Pines once before with my former bank with Synchrony, and it was glorious. Like, I am not a golfer. My golfing involves a windmill. And, the 18th hole where it goes back to the mini putt, but it was really a stunning, special place. I can totally see why you love it.
Did you know that it's named after a pine tree? Like a Torrey pine is a specific pine tree.
It's a beautiful tree on the property.
And it is one of the only climatic places that it can grow, which is why it's the Torrey Pines is next to the Torrey Pines State Park. And the smell of the Torrey Pines, which is kind of like a dwarf pine, think of it like the Joshua tree of pine trees, but it takes a very special climate for it to grow. And that is one of the only places in the world right there on the sandstone bluffs.
Stress that we are not sponsored by the Torrey Pines Resort and Hotel and Golf Club, but however, hashtag contact me and these gentlemen, if you want to, we're brand fans.
I am the person who, when chaperoning the kindergarten field trip to the zoo, was called out by a parent because I corrected the kindergartners that is a bison, not a buffalo.
That is true. I learned that when I went to Yosemite.
Thank you.
I went to Yosemite. Oh, sorry. Was it Yosemite or Yellowstone? Now I'm getting those two confused.
Yellowstone.
It was Yellowstone. It was in Montana. And all this time, I thought buffalo wings. And they're like, no, it's bison. In America, it's a bison. That was a really fun fact.
Another fun fact about Torrey Pines.
Oh, you want to get in on this?
I'm sorry, but you guys did not give me the mic soon enough on the Torrey Pines before you went off the balcony there. We went there for vacation many years ago, and there's like a Torrey Pines Avenue that goes off on Torrey Pines Boulevard, connected to Torrey Pines Street. And for whatever reason, my kids just got a big hoot out of that. So now whenever I say, hey, I'm going out west, I'm probably going to go to Torrey Pines, they start laughing because it's sort of like the, if you guys remember the Monty Python Queen Victoria sketch, where it's Queen Victoria's on the left, followed by Queen Victoria. But, there's like a race of Queen Victorias. And whatever, or the Spam sketch. Have you got a street that doesn't have Torrey Pines in it? And so anyway, and by the way, Jason, you said that I'm the only person that has to wear a hat, and I'm sorry, that's just false. That's just a lie. It's an industry lie, and we're going to solve it right now. You guys all get these premium hats, and also, by the way,
all the '90s vibes again when we're doing bucket
that's right.
Yeah.
Just they've not been sponsored or endorsed yet by LL Cool J or the Oasis reunion tour, but we're working on it. I got my contract negotiators working.
Where's hat?
All right, Fred Durst. Liam Gallagher is going to be coming up the stairs. Also, here's a double album coaster set. One of the folks that got one of these one time called me and said that didn't have a record player. Don't try to play those. Those will run your needle. They're meant for your bourbon or something else. They're a coaster.
I in fact collect records. So
do you?
I would have attempted to play this.
Okay, favorite recent record?
I would say it is the Queen collectible of Fat Bottom Girls with original poster art is a recent collectible that I got.
I got to say, I did not see that one coming.
So I'm in the process of... I was about to say Queen as well, because I was cleaning out a bunch of my stuff in my parents' house, right, in part of the life transition zone, and found all of my sister and my original LPs, including Queen, Air Supply. What's his name? The two brothers that my sister had the crush on, the younger brother, not the older.
Well, we were doing classic rock the last couple of days. We got bankers that grew up in the 80s and 90s. And so John Bon Jovi was like huge hit this past week.
Right, John Bon Jovi. I'll close it up on a little bit of a, let's just call it a weird one. There's a band that I've been following for the last several years called Lord Huron. They're based in LA, but they're originally from Michigan, hence the name Huron. They just, the lead singer and songwriter is also like he was like painting artist, not musical artist, but painting. And so all of their liner notes, we want to call that the album artwork, everything it has a real design sense to it. I just love it when people spend a lot of time thinking about how something feels and looks and everything. So if you get a chance to check out a newer band, not a new band, but newer band. But I want to thank all of you for joining me on this episode of Fintech Hustle. Maya Mikhailov, did I get it right this time? No, I'm close enough. That's a no, by the way. She's being polite. Jason Henrichs, not Jimmy, but Jason Henrichs, and Andy Ivankovich from Baker Hill. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. And we'll see you out on the next episode of Fintech Hustle. This is us from San Diego, seeing you out on the road. Cheers.